Hi, and hi, David and Austin. I think we have so far out there.
Looks like it looks to be it.
Yeah, I don't know if anybody cares about this kind of stuff, but anyway, so me and my two sons. Well, I haven't gotten into the fray yet, but my two sons are having an argument with our close friend and their adopted brother on Trumpism.
All right.
And I
That never
went
ends
over
well for anybody.
I went over to Pine Creek yesterday and listened to Pine Creek's argument for canceling birthright citizenship. And these people that are supporting what Trump is doing now is like you get into the China closet and you start whacking and you hope that the China falls in such a way that you still have some usable dishes. And so our position is that, you could have picked another man for this job. I mean, why didn't Bush do all this stuff, right? Why didn't Reagan do all this stuff? Why didn't Nixon do all this stuff? I mean, why did all these other old Republicans not come in swinging and make some changes? Because they would have done it rationally anyway, because they were rational people. And anyway, but Pine Creek's argument for canceling birthright citizenship goes along the lines of, it looks like it's against Constitution, right? Like it's unconstitutional. And of course, he's a Republican, and he steadfastly adheres to the Constitution. But he said, what you got to understand is what the founding fathers were thinking of when they wrote the amendment, right? So we have to put on our. You remember Johnny Carson used to put on that weird Swami hat or whatever and do predictions. Yeah. We have to put on our hat and predict what they meant. And then he says, consider this. If a couple from China fly into Miami, Florida, and in the airport she has a baby an hour later, do you think that baby should be an American citizen? And that was his argument. And he said, back when the founders created this, they didn't have airplanes, and that couldn't happen, right? So that could never happen. So they were thinking of something else. But it's like, wait a minute, Mr. Pine Creek. Who the hell is talking about that? I mean,
nobody. It's a straw man.
It's what is it? Analogic red herring.
Red herring.
And it gets you to intuitively think about it. But okay. Would the Chinese couple want to leave their child here and become an American citizen? And if the Chinese couple did, and they went to work for 5 years, and that kid grew up, and that kid was now in eighth grade, an American, speaking English, like every other kid in Miami, and in 8th grade, would you want to take him and deport him? So that is the counter analogic argument, but that is the norm. That's what we're talking about, right? For birthright citizenship, we're talking about kids that are going to school here, riding the bus, playing with the neighbors. We're going to pick them up and put them in a strange country that they've probably never seen before,
right?
And possibly even speaking a language that they don't know.
Well, at least in this case, they, the MAGA nuts would deport the parents too, but the analogy of the thought experiment of the Chinese baby in the airport is so statistically negligible,
rare, right?
That it's just stupid to consider it along those lines. Doug from Pine Creek and his MAGA buddies don't like people who don't have white skin. That's why they want to be able to get rid of any non-white people that they just don't like that are on the outside. That's what it's about.
He has this whole shtick where he's coming on with just, I am so reasonable and rational, and you're not. And I'm going to teach you atheists to think rationally. Like,
why don't we deport him back to Canada?
Yeah, there you go. Is he from Canada?
He's from Canada.
Oh, get rid of that maple syrup sucking bastard.
I believe. Correct, Dave or Laurie or David. David or Austin, anybody listening, if I'm correct, but isn't Pine Creek Doug from Canada originally?
We had to deport him. I'm pretty sure his skin is like a different shade of snowy white than ours. It's probably snowy white, or else it's maple syrup colored. I don't know what Canadians look like. I have no idea. Should get rid of them. Anyway, that kind of reasoning sort of pisses me off. And the kid that was listening to him was like, I think he was in his like 19 years old or something, and he was like, didn't know how to respond to him exactly. He was trying to be very reasonable.
Yeah, I figured Doug was an American citizen, Dave. But you know, with MAGA, they don't mind deporting American citizens who are naturalized. They're just fine with that. Sure. So it doesn't change anything. Let's deport him. That's the one deportation I would agree with. No, I'm just kidding. But Doug just doesn't like non-white people, or he wants to get along with the people in power who don't like non-white people.
Well, he's and I hate to admit this, but he is a lot like almost identically me in 1990. That was me in 1990. So that was what, 34 years ago, and that was how I thought. And I fell into all those arguments that I heard online and I heard from Rush Limbaugh, and I basically supported all that stuff. And I got freaked out every time I saw a traffic sign with Spanish on it instead of English. And it's like, oh, they're taking over. They're going to. A
little bit of xenophobia, huh?
Yeah, a little bit of xenophobia, yeah. And I lived in a place called New Germany, Minnesota, founded by a bunch of Germans. But of course, in New Germany, I don't think there wasn't a single Spanish person living there. There was nobody that I should have been upset about and pissed off about. The only bitch I had is we had lost a few contracts to Indian contractors programming. But those were on those green cards that the corporations basically pushed. And They're not talking about deporting those people,
Yeah, exceptions for the corporate class or the
for the corporation to make money by shifting to a lower, and part of that was because us American consultants we charged ridiculous amounts of money for our time. I mean, they got to pay like between $800 and $2,000 a day to get us to come and program for them. And if they can go do that in India or now another big one is Argentina and get really talented programmers for $400 a day, they're going to do that, right?
Right.
So part of it is, we dug our own hole, sort of. I don't know. But anyway, but the thing was that I was responding to some weird fear that had been planted in me by listening to these broadcasts in the first place, right? Like, oh, there's this big problem and stuff. And, and I had all this bullshit going on in my mind. Fortunately, I had been exposed in the 1980s to a trans person that I really liked and loved. And so I didn't go down that route. But of course, trans wasn't a thing back then. They didn't care. It was all gay, right? And I had, so I wasn't that kind of an asshole, but I was an asshole about immigration, and I was an asshole about economics, basically. I was yelling for a flat tax. But I mean, it's amazing, and I'm not a dumb person. And I was led into that by the circumstances of my life. And it was very difficult to talk me out of it at the time. But I took one thing at a time over the last 34 years and took and looked at it from a different perspective, particularly since I got into Alcoholics Anonymous. The whole process there is to take your belief and put it on the table and cut away all the fucking tinsel and take all the decorating lights off of it and take a look at it in its raw form and ask yourself the question, does this affect me? Is this really a problem that I should be concerned about? Should I really be afraid of seeing a Spanish traffic sign, right? I mean, should that scare me? And it's like, the answer is no. It's no skin off my ass. None of this stuff's skin off my ass. Trans people in sports? I don't know of any trans people in sports. None. And furthermore, I don't give a shit about sports. And I think sports, schools and sports, that's the next thing they went through is Title IX. It's okay. So Title IX is where the government will give money to the school unless they violate Title IX. And my niece was involved in that. She wanted to join the boys hockey team, and she would have been fine joining the boys hockey team, and she probably would have kicked their asses because she was good. And she said, okay, if I can't join the boys hockey team, then you are required to create a girls hockey team, and have that too. And she got it done. So that's a little bit of a problem there, but he's saying that because of Title IX, they get to make all of the rules about sports, right? And it's like, fuck. Title IX is supposed to lean toward inclusion, not exclusion. And when it comes to deciding whether or not to exclude, I think that is up to the individual school, up to the sports organization, or whatever, because they've got to work out all sorts of things. Like, why aren't they doing something for the 100-pound ninth grader who can't play football against the 180-pounder sitting next to him in class? Why aren't they worried about that? I mean, it's just it's something that local people have to make local decisions upon, and the government should not be involved in it outside of making an overall rule that you will be inclusive, that you will bend over backwards for everybody.
You're being a bit ambiguous with the term government. You mean that you don't want the federal government to interfere with local schools?
Yeah, I don't think state government should either, as far as sports goes. I don't think state government should make rules about football. It's not. Well,
that's true. Signing an what was it? What executive order did he do that had to do with sports?
It was with I'm not sure.
I'm not quite sure. Yeah, these. Yeah. See, we make the mistake of saying, Republicans don't believe in big government. The Republicans now don't care about big government. They just care about authoritarian power. And They want to get their hands into anything and everything that they can create injustices in, so that they can, get an unequitable amount of the profits coming.
Yeah.
So that, the lower class people get less and less, and they get to hoard the profits from overcharging people.
Yeah.
Which is why they're trying to privatize everything, is because they want to create marketable products out of forecasting the weather and things like that, rather than it being a public good that is stable and sustained and maintained for the public good by public money.
Yeah, so I asked ChatGPT to draw me a really stupid-looking, confused squirrel looking up at a magical nut in the sky, basically. And he came up with, let me see if I can start my cam here.
Hey, Dave.
Hello.
And you know what it told me? It told me it was outside of ChatGPT's guidelines. And I'm like, you snowflake. So I changed it to say, so I took out really stupid and I just left in confused, and it came up with this. So I mean, like, snowflake.
I just wanted to mention that when my son played football, he was overweight, so they were not allowed to carry the football. That doesn't mean that they couldn't play football.
Yeah.
Yeah, any of the big guys weren't allowed to carry the ball. So if, let's say, there was a fumble, my boy could only fall on it. You couldn't pick it up and run, because he was twice the size of some of the other kids, and they could get hurt. So
yeah. And
but they didn't say.
Who made those rules? Did the president of the
No,
United States make that rule? No.
no. The
No.
sports league did to accommodate the kids that wanted to play, and that included there was also a female quarterback that played for one of the teams too, and she was allowed to play, and they accommodated her. And guess what? When she needed to change or anything, they accommodated her so she could change somewhere separate from all the young men that were playing. And there's not a problem. The sports handle it, and they handle it so it's as fair as possible. Again, if my son, or we had a kid, his nickname was Teddy Bear, he was bigger than my boy. Okay. Literally, you could just hand him the football and he could just march down the field, and there's nothing 10 other kids could do hanging off of him, So, so they made accommodations.
Right. The idea for those things is to handle it locally, just like the Republicans want to be able to homeschool their kids according to whatever indoctrination they want to do to their children. If we made state rules that they could not homeschool them, they'd squeal like stuck piggy. But then they want to make rules about what parents can do to their kids medically, right? They're just all over the place. They don't have an ideology that holds from one case to the next. So they want to dig in, and they want to tell you what your wife's. They want to dig into your wife's womb. They want to dig into your children's genitals, and they want to control all that. But they don't want us to control them teaching young Earth creationism to their children. They would squeal like a stuck pig if we did that, would they not?
Oh yeah,
they would.
So there's no consistency.
Yeah. It's the argument with the federal government should not be making rules for local schools, but that's why we have local school boards and state school boards and the federal all working together. But at the same time, they say, if the public schools don't do as we say, we're going to cut off federal funding. So they're talking out both sides of their mouth. Oh, the state can handle it, or the local state school board can handle it. But if they do something we don't like, then we're not going to give them any money. Well, then you're not letting them do, local. You're not.
Yeah. Yeah. So they, we were talking about Jimbob being a grifter yesterday, and Jimbob is not an angry person. He is a grifter, and he's hosting about 500 angry people every day when he does a stream. Now, these MAGA people are doing the same thing. They're coming up with these issues that have been these fears that have been created in the minds of a bunch of Americans by the culture and the media, right? Creating this fear of immigration, this fear of trans people, and it's taken over, and they're making the frogs gay. All of these little fears, and they're creating a platform for them to get angry and to push and bully other people to get their way. And when they elected Trump, their little weenies tingled because now they could do their bully bullshit, right? They could bully everybody on those points. Meanwhile, Trump and Musk and maybe not Trump, maybe Trump isn't bright enough. He's just sort of a puppet. But meanwhile, they're doing a whole lot of other shit they're going to do with taxes and a whole bunch of other stuff that we're not going to pay attention to, because they've got that little group of angry people all just, running around with pitchforks and torches, chasing the Frankenstein monster while they're in the back manipulating the country in ways that we don't even fucking understand. So, I mean, that's what's going on. That is the Republicans found a way to do what Jimbob is doing with his audience, and they did it. They managed to pull in 50% of the Americans onto that fucking bandwagon, and they're just as idiotic as everyone over there listening to Jimbob making those racist comments and going after this person and that person, going after women. Just a bunch of angry, immature, emotionally immature adult children, and they basically got them to herd up with the pitchforks and the You know, it's amazing. There was we had this really stupid dog named Schnapsy, and every time we would go to the lake, Schnapsy would follow us for about 5 miles until he wore his paws out, and then eventually he'd go back home. One day, Schnapsy followed us, and he never came back home. They named him after Peppermint Schnapps because the guy they got him from was an alcoholic. So they call him Schnapsy. But anyway, one day Schnapsy come running down the driveway, just, whining and screaming, and he had been sprayed by a skunk. And we had a problem with rabid skunks. And so Schnapsy's like, his eyes are just all red, and he's, tears and just fucking in horrible pain. And I went and got the shotgun, and I went out there because I wanted him to go find the skunk, right? So I was like, Schnapsy, come on, get the skunk, get him, and all that stuff. And it took me about 3 minutes to get Schnapsy to run back out, find the skunk, get sprayed again by the skunk, and then I shot the skunk. That was a real story from my childhood. But it took me 5 minutes to get Schnapsy to forget that he had been sprayed by the skunk and go get him sprayed again. And I thanked him for his service. Like, thank you for your service.
So what do you do with a dog that's been sprayed by a skunk?
If you don't let them in the house, and you don't go near them if you live on the farm, but if you got to bring them in the house, like Midas and Pipper got sprayed by a skunk, and I had to ride Midas. He was the St. Bernard. So I had to get on his back and ride him and pour tomato juice on him, because I guess that eventually takes it out, and hose him down about 6 times. And then we let him back in the house, but it took
lots and lots of water, basically. Yeah.
A lot of water and soap and lots of washing, and Midas did not like that. So I had to ride him around. I was riding him in one of those kids' pools filled with water, like literally on top of the dog like he was a horse. And it's like, nope, you're getting a bath. Yeah.
At least it wasn't a cat.
Yeah, the reason that he probably didn't smell like a skunk anymore is because I probably smelled so much like a skunk that I didn't notice it. By the time I was
You were just smoking some good bud, that's all.
Smoking good bud, yeah.
There's a cartoon with, is that Chronic or is that a skunk? And you got the skunk sitting behind the fence smoking one. It's like hard to tell.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, this shit does have a similar smell, doesn't it? Interesting. Anyway, so.
I would wonder, I drove a lot when I was a service tech, and I would go out in the middle of nowhere, and there's always seems to be roadkill skunk somewhere. But I would always have the wonder of, is that a skunk, or is there a patch growing in this cornfield over here?
Right. Yep. What, I'm trying to figure this shit out.
Did you like that video yesterday?
Which one? The revealed apologetics? Is that the
pre-sub one? Yeah.
Yeah. I've got it up here. Me and Scott were looking at it. He's basically one of these people that are going to try to dive deeper. And I sent him a little message and told him that we're doing a thing on Tag today, and asked him why he picked low-hanging fruit, which is what he did with the criticism. That was the one with rationality rules. And let's see, where are we here?
Yeah, for some reason he chose a 6-year-old video, a 6-year-old episode of Truth Wanted. How many very highly qualified people have done their refutations of presuppositionalism since then? It seems like he could have used a more well-vetted host, or speaker, because even in that one, like objectively Dan said, I don't know much about presuppositional apologetics. Why use that as your sample of how to respond to atheists? It seems like he's, trying to, is that an example of punching down maybe? Like he doesn't want to address the competent ones. He wants to address the ones that are a bit uncertain or not the most rigorous. Rationality rules, he does a good job, I think, in general. But is he the best person to critique if you're trying to critique a representative atheist, if there is such a thing?
Well, that's the thing. Yeah, if you're an atheist, though, you have to know where the universe came from, and you have to know where life came from, and you have to know all
look how
these
arrogant
things.
all these people are, that they're
guys,
saying that even if
James is live.
Yeah,
did you know that?
Yeah, I was watching him. He's been on for a while. He's probably wrapping it up.
Oh damn!
He was on for an hour and a half when your notification came up. So.
Yeah, I don't want to do that. That's bad news. That's bad karma. Yeah, bad karma.
Hey, welcome back.
Well, like I say, he's probably gonna wrap it up. He's been going for a while.
Yeah. So anyway, overall, for the last 2-3 days, for the last week and a half, I've been considering a variety of different kinds of people, who some of them I've had a relationship with, where they're always angry. They always got to find something on the news to be angry about, and they're always bitching, and they're always like, they'll go out in traffic and find something to be angry about, or they'll be MAGA supporters and they're angry about politics and they're angry about liberals. And it's like people that are angry, and then they made me angry. They made me one of them. Basically, like, I'm angry about politics right now. Well, I don't know about angry. I'm really sad about politics right now.
Yeah, James is over 2 hours in. He's been going for a while.
I am so sorry I did that to him. What do we got here? Presuppositionalism. What is that one? Oh, that's that Carneades thing. I better link that one too, so I have it on file. So going after the presuppers. Let's see. I got this one. We'll try that one too. But I guess going after this guy's. Oh, why? Oh, yeah. Okay, that doesn't switch. Ha! Amazing. Should we listen to this guy for a while?
I watched it already, so it's up to you.
You watched the whole thing? An hour?
I watched the whole thing. Yeah, that's I saw the thing. It was going at 6 o'clock, and that's why I messaged you, and then I let it run and I watched it because I figured you might watch it and you'd be quizzing me or something, so I better watch it.
Oh, yeah, I did.
Our first video is called Counter Arguments to Presuppositional Apologetics. It's an episode.
At least I think there's a major flaw. Tell the difference. No one could tell the difference.
Presume.
There's a difference between presuppositionalism and the method, and then there are people within that method that might argue in certain ways that are different. They're not necessarily the same. Everyone doesn't argue in the exact same way. So you need to acknowledge nuance within that perspective. So sometimes I've been accused, of being a Clarkian presuppositionalist, which of course is not the case, and that is a big difference between when you're comparing someone who's a Clarkian presuppositionalist and someone who's a Van Tillian presuppositionalist. They're not the same, and actually the difference and the nuance is of vital importance. It actually makes all the difference in the world.
Did he say he was a Clarkian or a Van Tillian?
He's saying he's a Van Tillian, but he's accused of being a Clarkian.
Right.
What is a Clarkian presupper?
And there was somebody in the chat. There was somebody in the chat while this was going that was pushing the question that nobody would answer is you have to prove that your God exists, and he just says, well, I just assume it does, that therefore my argument is sound. And it's like, well, then that could go for any argument, and why this argument fails.
Clark taught that the Bible should be treated as the axiom, the foundational starting place.
Yeah, that's Gordon H. Clark. I'd heard the name before, but as opposed to Cornelius Van Til.
That is what he's doing. He even admits it in the video.
Okay. Yeah, but he starts with, like he starts talking about this chronological, what the hell? chronological distinction where logic and God happen at the same time, I think, as near as I can tell. And that's kind of where I decided that I was too much in need of a nap to sit and listen to it, so I quit. But
world in terms of understanding what a Clarkian is saying fundamentally and what a Van Tillian is saying fundamentally. So what I appreciate here by Rationality Rules is he is asking for more context.
I was just kind of curious what your thoughts were. One other question that might be relevant is when dealing with, and I've seen this done on a live stream before, where you use street epistemology to talk to someone who's a presuppositionalist. I was wondering if
introducing all access, your premium gateway to
presuppositionist. I like that. Presuppositionist.
It's a mouthful.
That's what we'll call him from now on. Let's see here. Okay, it passes paid promotion bullshit.
Has to use logic or presuppose logic to even make the argument. So when we say something along the lines of that, you either have to start with God or you have to start with logic. That's the question, right? And I think that's what he's bringing up. The idea is that if we try to argue for the existence of God, we have to presuppose the laws of logic. So we're not actually starting with God. We're starting with logic. Okay. Right. This is a similar critique that was brought up by, if I can give some context to the caller's question, I would imagine the caller probably doesn't know this, but this was a common criticism brought up against the presuppositional approach by someone like R.C. Sproul. So R.C. Sproul accused the presuppositionalists, and I think fallaciously so, and I've an entire video just responding to R.C. Sproul if you're interested in that on this same topic, is that the claim is that the presuppositionalist confuses ontology with epistemology, and this whole issue of proper starting points comes in. Is it the case that we start with God or we start with ourselves, or in this case, we start with logic? Okay. And so it's either starting with God or starting with self, starting with God or starting with logic. And so if you say, I start with God, the idea is you don't really start with God because you have to use logic to even talk about God. So if you start with logic and not God, then you don't need God for logic because you're using logic and doing logic and reason and rationality, whatever, without God. You have to argue to God. Okay, that's the context. So,
okay, so he's come up with a really valid critique for TAG, basically. Okay, that they claim they're starting with God or presupposing God, and they can't do that because as soon as they open their mouths and talk to you, they're presupposing logic. So he's going to frame it as an either or, either God or logic, either use God or logic. So this is going to be his counter, and he's going to try to weasel his way out of it here. Okay, do you follow that? So yep. if you come up to me and tell me, Mike, I believe that I'm the only mind in the world and that I imagined you and that I created you and all that stuff. And I counter with, what the hell are you talking to me for, Dave? Okay, that's kind of a transcendental argument, right? Because why would you be talking to a figment of your own imagination? Because obviously,
just molecules in motion.
If you're a solipsist, you believe that I'm part of your imagination, that I don't really exist. Everything is your mind and you're creating me. You're also creating my counter argument. So why would you do that? So that's kind of that's one of the things I have a problem with when I'm manifesting things. Why am I manifesting somebody that disagrees with me? That's strange. Yeah. I keep manifesting stubbing my toe on a 30-pound weight on my floor. I don't know why I keep doing that. Don't do that. It's a character defect. Anyway. Boy, you ought to hear me swear when that happens. Holy shit. Well, it's like with God and the devil. It's like, why would God create an adversary? Yeah. Yep. I'm going to make somebody that hates me. That's what I'm going to do today. Okay. Because I'm all knowing. The Buddhists would say that that's the only way to make the game worth playing. Basically, you have to have evil. So, well, it's what they say. If Sherlock Holmes catches Moriarty, the story's over. It's over, right? Yep. Okay. Let's
So,
hear his
the
chronology.
problem with that is that it's a false dichotomy. Okay, and obviously so. There's actually a third option. So when you're given two options, when in fact there's a third option, that is called a false dichotomy. And so this is predicated upon the idea that the phrase "to start with" is being equivocated upon. Okay, you can start with something in different ways. For example, you have starting with in terms of chronology. Okay, you can chronologically start with something and then move on to something else, or you can start with something logically speaking. So we have logical starting with or logical priority, or we have chronological starting with. And so the assumption here is that when the presuppositionalist says that you need God in order to make sense out of logic, but then he has to use logic to argue about that. That is talking, the presuppositionalist is talking in terms of logical priority, not chronological priority. Dr. Greg Bahnsen brings this up clearly in his writings. He says, obviously, the presuppositionalist is not saying that we don't start with ourselves chronologically speaking in order to talk about God. That's obviously the case. What we're arguing is that in terms of logically starting with, okay, logical order, logical priority, not chronological order or chronological priority, we start with God logically speaking, God and his revelation, which provide the context, a meaningful context for understanding logic and justifying it in our worldview. Okay, so yes, no one is arguing that we don't start with logic chronologically speaking, but we don't start with logic logically speaking in terms of the ultimate foundation. It is the triune God, the presuppositionalist will argue. It's the triune God who is the metaphysical basis that grounds logic,
Can
and
we
his
pause it for a
revelation,
second?
which is the epistemological link.
Nice try for him, eh? This is a nice
They
try.
don't have an argument for a Trinitarian God. They don't even have an argument for God. They just presuppose God. That's not an
Yep.
argument. That's an assertion.
Yep. Yeah, and there's a part here where we go over Bahnsen stuff that they never want to talk about. But anyway, so this is his move to get out of that argument, basically that no, they're not starting chronologically. They're not starting with logic or starting with God. They're doing everything at once. Basically, that God is the metaphysical necessity for logic, and so the whole thing is presented at once, and you're supposed to swallow that. But it depends on something. It depends on there being no other way to account for logic, right? And that's where they'll start arguing with the naturalists and say, well, you can't account for logic. You can't account for regularity. You can't account for this and account for that. We can, because we have just created this whole metaphysical story right in front of you, and it's very internally consistent, and you just have to swallow it whole, not chronologically, not piece at a time. So I mean, he's trying to make that move, and it's pretty goddamn weak, really. But I want to dig a little more into him. But for now, I don't know. You want to keep listening to this? Possibly?
Well, the pre-suppers, a lot of folks know, are the reason I got all into the Bigfoot thing, because every time they would say you need the, whatever metaphysical basis, or, whatever the language folks like Darth and stuff use. And I would just throw back at them, no, it's Bigfoot. It can't be Bigfoot, because Bigfoot is material. It's like, no, Bigfoot's not material.
Yeah, since you're in metaphysics, most of the time you're just asserting things and saying, oh, it has to be that way, so we're going to start from there. God doesn't add anything to the argument. It's just adding one extra layer, one extra piece that you don't need. And
well, it's a consistent story that they've come up with. Now you could also say, okay, you are a brain in a vat, and I am some kind of alien creature, and I don't live in a world with logic or reason or anything, but I made all this up for you, all this logic, regularity of nature, everything, and I'm feeding it to your brain from the outside. Of course, that begs the question as to why we need a brain at all if the natural universe doesn't work. But I mean, you could come up with another story and make that internally consistent, and you could say, okay, we got to believe this because there's no other way to account for logic or reason or objective morality. So right back at them. I mean, they insist that the triune God is the only story that completely explains it and then they'll launch into all of this stuff that only you, Scott, are going to understand. All of this, what is it? Theocracy? I don't know what the fuck it is. What is? Yeah. Anyway.
Well, those are words.
Yeah, those are words, but they're not the right ones, are they?
I've got words too. Bigfoot is the necessary being, the uncaused cause, and the source of all moral values.
And he's omniscient and omnipotent. Yeah. Yeah. The lobster or whatever. But they'll
lobster.
Laugh at that because they have 2,000 years of people just reading that Bible and coming up with ideas and building this story of the triune God. And when you look at the Eastern Orthodox, they have just bundles of writing that they've done on thinking to try to explore, God, explore their fantasy. It's almost like Tolkien. I mean, they almost wrote as much as Tolkien did. I don't know, not quite, but anyway.
Yeah, Deconverted Man and I both had the same idea, years and years ago, that the argument fails because you can replace it with lobster or Bigfoot or anything else, and it makes it sounds silly, right? Well, throw it right back. It sounds silly when you're putting God in. It's the same thing.
Yeah, Leo, they're talking about what I call like M1 metaphysics or 7th grade metaphysics, where you make up a story that kind of explains the universe. And it's like you can make up an infinite amount of those stories if you're really imaginative. And it's not really metaphysics. Real metaphysics deals with objects and particulars and universals and mereology and all of that stuff. And it's not something you can just assert whole cloth. Anyway, it doesn't change anything. Let's say we got Fisher of Men. Fisher of Men is the uncaused cause, and it doesn't change anything. Do you realize you're changing the name of the same concept? The ontological status of Bigfoot would still need to. Why is it only showing part of that? That's weird.
You have to go to the next one.
Oh, okay. Would be the same thing. God. Yeah. So God is just a catch-all that you're going to inject that explains all of these things that you want to explain. But tell me about God. How does God entail logic? How does God entail logic? Oh, he created logic. What do you mean created? How did he create logic? Did he sit down with a pencil and paper first? Where do you get the pencil and paper if there's no universe? What did he do exactly? I mean, you're just asserting that something created it, and naturalists do the same thing. We're saying it just is. This is the world we find ourselves in. We don't know anything about beginnings or around that world or whatever, but we do know this world, and we know we have this natural world where there's logic, there's regularity, and it's absolutely necessary for us to be here, for there to be space, time, and particles, and that's it. Why not call that God instead of attributing human characteristics to your God? What is your God? Why does the functional creation of the universe require a human-like entity that has intention and creates things? It's right back at you. I mean, naturalism can assert the same thing. Yeah, God just is. The universe just is. It just is. That's the first thing you learn.
Or you can say, well, tentatively, we can say it just is. Maybe in the future, we'll be able to come up with some actual explanation instead of a filler word that we call the explanation.
Right. And it won't look anything like a human-like story about creating tools and creating going and making a cabin in the middle of the woods, building things, creating things. It's going to look like a really abstract mathematics. And we're going to have as much trouble getting our minds around that as we do quantum mechanics. So it's certainly not going to look like a human being, an anthropic being with intention and all that.
And Fisher and Men wanted to say that, okay, then you have no justification for true beliefs. And it's like, well, that's the point. Just saying God or Bigfoot is the justification for true beliefs doesn't make it true.
I can justify
that's
true
the whole
beliefs. I can justify true beliefs. I have a cup of coffee. I'm looking at it. I can pick it up. I can drink it. That's all the justification. The idea of truth is like a man-made concept to represent something about the universe. It's a description of something we did with mathematics to make sense out of things. It is true that I have a cup of coffee in front of me on the left side of me. I know what my left and right side is. All of this is truth, and I don't need any more justification into that. That is exactly how you do it. You, fisher of men, sit down and stuff your mouth with food every day in the same manner that I do, and that is true. And we don't need to justify it any more than that.
And it opens up a whole can of worms of what are true beliefs. Well, the Bible is true, and then I'm going to bring up Magic Zoo Boat, and then I'm going to say it's kind of ridiculous to say that this is true with a Magic Zoo Boat in it.
Fisher of Men is saying that we're doing what he's doing, or that person. I don't know if it's a he or she, but we're saying you're doing it. You just think you have cover by calling it God, but call it Bigfoot. Yeah, it's the same as calling it God. Call it God. Call it Fred. Call it the world tree.
Fred the ketchup bottle, right?
You're doing the same thing, Fisherman. You have nothing that you're really grounding anything on, because there's no evidence that thing is real and exists. So
I don't have any
we're not doing science. You're not doing science. You're not doing philosophy either, unless you call grounding something and just a label that you're just going to assert over and over and over and over and over till you've gaslighted people into believing it's real. If you're going to call that philosophy, go ahead. But it does not pass the smell test for me. And you have failed at being a fisher of men.
And it doesn't prove your religion, because any religion can just use the tag argument for themselves. They just say, I'm right, my God's right. And if you presuppose that, then the rest of the argument follows for any religion, right?
The grounding, Fisher of Men, is, I think, an artifact of your belief system.
Yeah.
You're making too much of it. Grounding is just you're basing something on something, and maybe the honest position is, well, we don't really have anything to base it on yet. You say, it's got the gaps. I say, I will wait and see, and because nothing you've said has convinced me. Once again, you failed at being a fisher of men because you're not convincing.
So we can call God space-time, quantum fields, or space-time particle reality the same thing, because that is something that Fisher of Men believes too. So we agree with him on everything about objects in the world. He probably lives in a house, drives a car, knows where the store is, has a map, knows how to use a map, knows where countries are. All of that stuff is naturalism. And that is something that we share a belief with. But what he's doing is he's adding something outside of that and saying, oh, this is what caused naturalism. Therefore, I have a foundation. Well, you don't need that foundation. You did not need it when you were 1 month old or 3 years old or 18 years old. You don't need to found it or justify it. So there's one of the big questions about tag is, why do I need to justify? Why do I need to find a foundation when I can just live my life in this world, in this reality, just as you do, just as 8 billion other people do? I mean, does anybody ever question, why do we need this justification? It's just ridiculous. Getting a distinct impression that you either don't know the first premise of the argument or that you know it is perilously flawed premise. Yeah, we can take a look at the argument. Okay, so Bonson,
if you can apply this argument to any religion, then it doesn't really prove your religion, right? So what's it doing? You know, it's just ultimately saying my religion's right. But if a Muslim apologist uses the same argument, are you going to accept it because it's the same argument? No, you're going to say they're wrong, I'm right. And they're going to say, you're wrong, I'm right. So, okay. That's
Muslims
the religious argument in a nutshell, right?
Muslims and Christians have some overlap, but the point with that we really need to clarify here is that Muslims and Christians have overlap with naturalists too. That naturalism is sort of a subset of what they believe. They believe something over and above what we believe for naturalism.
Yeah. Well, the one I was watching some bad apologists earlier. You know me. And he said, well, the Quran can't be true because it says the moon was split in two, and that never happened. And it's like, well, then the Bible isn't true because there was never a global flood. Well, no, but it actually happened because my book says so. Well, then the moon actually split in two because their book says so. There you go. It's pointless. It's just my book is right. Okay. It's not a winning argument, though. And if there was a good winning argument, wouldn't most people flock to, one religion if they said, oh, well, you got it figured out? But they don't.
Yeah. Anyway, let's see. Bonson's argument. Okay. Number one, you identify the fundamental features of reasoning and experience. And I think we went through some of this yesterday, didn't we? Laws of logic, uniformity of nature, objective morality, and reliability of cognitive faculties. We went through that. Then you conduct an internal critique of non-Christian worldviews. Now, for an internal critique, you have to actually do an internal critique. I mean, you have to come over to where naturalism is, and you have to listen long enough to an actual naturalist or physicalist explain some of these things if you want an explanation for it. And we have an explanation to a point, right? He shows that non-theistic worldviews fail to provide a cogent, consistent basis for these fundamental features. Okay. So materialism and the laws of logic. Okay. My idea is that space-time and particles, the fact that particles are in space-time, that one particle can be 6 foot from another, or it can be 1 nanometer from another, that is something, that there is structure in space-time. And that's my argument. And then you would say, well, why is it that way? Well, under your view with God, why is there space-time particles? Under your view, how does God entail there being space-time particles? That's what I want to know, Fisher of Man, if you want to answer that one. I can't answer why the universe is that way, but what I can tell you is it necessarily is that way. That we could not be the kinds of things we are, having this discussion that we are, unless there was space-time, particle, reality, and structure. That there was no more than just particles. We're not talking about matter. Okay, we're talking about space-time and particles within that space-time. That is the reality. It's not just matter or materialism, as people like to strawman materialism. Let's see here. Fisher of Men. Maybe I should put a link out. Maybe Fisher wants to come in and talk about this stuff. But anyway, so I mean, why does God did it answer the question any more than me saying it just is? It necessarily is space-time particle reality. I don't understand why God did it is. Why God, there being a God entails that there be space-time particles with logic and regularity. I don't understand that. What am I missing?
It's because they want their God to be true. That's what it is. Because they never argue for a God. They argue for their God.
Their God, yeah. Yep. Okay. Materialism and laws of logic. If ultimate reality is purely matter and motion, no. It's not just matter in motion. It is matter in motion at a particular place in reality. There is structure to it. There is structure to a carbon atom. Okay, it's very different than a nitrogen atom. Attempts to treat logic as a product of the brain or evolution. Okay, this is the part where atheists often fail, nominalists like Leo, basically, and I don't think Leo really holds to this kind of nominalism, but they're saying that, logic is just something that the brain or evolution created, and math is something that humans created and all that stuff. Fuck humans. Take humans out of the equation, okay? And look at what logic is in a space-time particle reality. Look at what numericity is in a space-time reality, and stop talking about humans and minds and descriptions. Granted, humans can describe this shit, and we have descriptions, and we call it logic, and we have little squiggles we make on the paper, but god damn it, it's something we discovered. It's something about the universe. We're not going to have a different kind of logic if you go to a different culture, or even if you go to an alien planet. You're going to end up with the same damn regularity, because it's necessary. So that's where they like to trip you up. They'll say, oh, well, if it's just in your brain, well, then another culture or another brain could have it different, right? That's why that doesn't work very well.
Nope. If you trip, you fall down and hit the ground.
Yep. And solipsism is just ridiculous. I don't see why people think solipsism is so irrefutable. It refutes itself as soon as it says something.
Yeah, and this next thing about the whole uniformity of nature, that's the problem that I have, is because they're saying you need a God to have uniformity in nature, but the whole thing about God is God steps in on a whim and changes all the reality. So I don't see how it's a good argument to say reality is how it is because of God, when, well, wait a minute, God just suspends the laws of physics and time. It can make the universe stand still for a day or something, it said in the Bible. And so I don't see how you're making an argument for uniformity. You should be making an argument against uniformity, because you're saying your God can just interrupt all the laws of physics on a whim, right? I don't see how that's saying that it's uniform because of God if God doesn't keep it uniform.
Yeah, so Leo brings up brute contingency. So the idea that God created logic and created the regularity in the universe, so that implies that God could have created something else. What else would God have created that would put us here talking to each other and doing this YouTube stream? I don't think they have an answer for that. So that's why it just is. This is a reality that we are stuck in, that we wake up and find ourselves in. And we kick around and we try to figure out what is going on exactly.
Yeah, I'll accept that it doesn't change, but the theist is saying it does.
Yeah, that God could have done it a different way. God could have made a square circle.
Or you're going to wake up tomorrow and you're going to float out of bed and have wings and go right through the wall because the laws of physics go out the window. What we see is that they don't.
Hey, Fisher, if you're still here, come talk to us sometime. Maybe you sound reasonable. So maybe Fisher could straighten me out on why I think just is and God did it are the same, of the same caliber. You could choose one or the other. Doesn't matter. Okay, and then inductive reasoning and the uniformity of nature of reality. Yeah, the fact that we can do inductive reasoning, it's going to be the same tomorrow. The laws of nature aren't going to suddenly change.
Unless you're a believer, and then Yahweh can just say, I'm going to suspend all the laws of physics today and allow, the sun to sit still in the sky, and I'm going to have an earthquake open right underneath the opposing forces, and as long as they don't have iron chariots, we're good to go.
Well, in 10 years, there's a 1% chance that an asteroid is going to hit us.
Yeah, I saw there's an article running that something's headed towards us in 2032 or something, 35 or something.
Yeah, 2035. Yeah, I'll be out there. I'll be 84 years old with my cane. I'll be like, get off my lawn, you goddamn asteroid.
No, we got Kat Kerr. She's got a magic stick. She'll just wave it at it. Oh. It'll go away like she does with the hurricanes.
We did that one experiment about sending that rocket to bump that one asteroid. I wonder if anybody's cooking up a plan to send something like that out there.
I guess there's discussions. I'm not sure who's having them, but there is, they are looking to see if it's going to come and what we should do just in case. So how involved it is or whatever, I'm not sure, but I did see the news story on it.
Here it is again. We rely on the principle of induction in science, but an atheistic framework, whatever the hell that is, we just don't believe in God, struggles to justify why the future must mirror the past rather than just describing a pattern we've seen so far. Well, who says it's not a pattern we've seen so far? The atheistic worldview doesn't claim that the universe isn't going to completely dissolve 3 minutes from now. I mean, there's no reason why it shouldn't. It probably will at some point. But in our lifetime, in our history, things have been going along pretty clear. There's no reason for the sun to rise tomorrow. I mean, other than the regularity of nature, but I mean, the regularity of nature could quit. The sun could stop. The earth could stop. We'll all fly off at 1,000 miles an hour, 10,000 miles an hour.
Why is God sending a big rock our way?
Yeah, right. Why are we struggling to say? We struggle to justify why the future. That this is them not doing an internal critique. Okay,
that's a straw man.
They're the ones that's
pretending they have an idea of the atheist's position, but
when they come up with
the world could just fizzle apart tomorrow.
Right.
And
when
that
they come up with
thing.
Words like struggle and justify are religious words. These are your words. You're not doing an internal critique. We don't struggle to justify it. We accept it. It is. This is the way it necessarily is. I don't know why this is the part where they try to make the atheist look like, oh, I'm an idiot and I just never really thought about it before. I mean, I have thought about it and I don't have to justify it. I don't justify it. I really think that the universe is like at some point is going to completely change into some other kind of reality and we'll be long gone by then, but whatever. Anyway. And then they go to morality. I mean, Jesus Christ, go back to the anthropomorphic, right? I mean, we're trying to all this stuff above here is pure metaphysics, right? This is pure metaphysics. And then all of a sudden they fucking take a sidecar and fly off in another direction with something that is human, all too human. Morality. It's something that humans do, right? Animals do it to a degree, but humans do this. So what the hell? Why does that have to be metaphysically justified? Only if it's objective morality. So that means that it would be wrong to kill a human if there were no humans. That would be an objective reality, but who says it's wrong? God. Okay, well, God could have said it's not wrong, or God could have said it's wrong. So it's subjective. So you're back to subjectivity. So how the hell are you going to end up with objective morality without it being in the mind and intent of your God? It's still subjective.
God says, do not murder, and then he sends people off to murder people. So,
well, that's the other thing. He's a little
there again. So, okay, well, God says so doesn't really mean anything, because on a whim, God's going to say, well, forget that. Go wipe out all those people, women, children, animals, and everything else.
Yeah. The universe just exists. It doesn't need to be accounted for. It does not. This is the reality we find ourselves in. And you're not holding an inconsistent worldview when you're 5 days old and you can't account for why the universe exists, are you? Do you have an inconsistent worldview? No. When you're 6 years old and you're riding your trike down the street, you don't have to account for it. For God's sake, what is wrong with these people? So that's where they're trying to make the atheist look like he's a student with a dunce cap on, right? So this is where it becomes about rhetoric, and it becomes about them just blathering and preaching. And that's why this is where they completely fly off the rails with metaphysics. when they start with this objective morality bullshit and justifying. Bonson argues in these ways, non-theistic worldviews are internally inconsistent. How? What is internally inconsistent about it? They have not presented a case for internal inconsistency. Other than we don't know, we can't justify, we don't have an ultimate foundation. I don't get it. Water just falls from the sky. It just does kind of, yeah, that would be kind of given up. We can figure out why water falls from the sky, but, and we are trying to figure out why the universe just is. Basically, we're trying to figure out the whole early moments of the universe. We're working on it, but Jesus, we don't need it in order to understand common sense. Nothing inconsistent about naturalistic common sense. Everything we run into, we can find a way to attack it, like rain and like objects and all of that. What we can attack is what happened 14.8 billion years ago. We don't know that yet. We're not sure.
And if we do, then where are they going to move it to? Right? If tomorrow they say, well, there's this force we discovered, and when it does a certain thing, the energy expands and you get a universe. There's the explanation. Here's the math. Here it all is. Then they're going to have to move it to, well, before the universe and outside of the universe.
Can you guys talk for a minute? I got to leave for a minute and read something.
All right.
Important. Okay.
Well, yep. This is just another, well, if you don't know something, then aha moment. And, well, that's God of the gaps. I often tell people that bring up, well, where did this come from? Explain this, explain that. It's like, you need to learn a little patience. Like Mike said, there's people working on these things. That's what they do. That's why we know a lot of the things that we know. It's because we have these great minds and they're out there figuring these things out. So,
yeah, Jason, you are making claims about reality, he says. Then instead of backing up your claim, you're just saying you're correct because reasons. Well, if the reasons are sound and valid, then yes, reasons. But we're making claims about reality, backing up what we can back up, and then we're saying, since there's no convincing reason to believe in God, we're just going to hold out saying this is true of reality and that is true of reality until we have evidence or some reason to believe God should go in there. Otherwise, we'll just wait until we have an answer. I don't see a problem with that. You're trying to force us to claim to know what we don't know in an otherwise robust theory of cosmology. And I'm not going to claim that I know what I don't know. You're claiming that you know what you can't know. And that's what's wrong with presuppositionalism, that God must have done it, or God is the grounding of everything. Just assert something that there's no reason to believe in. Once again, well, actually, you're not fishers of men, but Jason, that's what we're saying.
Now, correct me if I'm wrong, but isn't there a whole bunch of stuff in the Bible about man being finite and not knowing certain things about God or about the outer picture? That man should be humble, and man's ideas are just man's ideas, and then there's this other thing, which is out there that they don't know. I mean, isn't there some sort of agnosticism built into Christianity? A humble agnosticism where they say we don't really know the mind of God, we don't know God's will. I mean, isn't that part of it? And here they are saying they've got it all figured out. They can ground it, they can justify it. Well, it says right in your goddamn book that you can't.
Mysterious ways. They've got an answer, no matter if it's good or bad or indifferent. It's mysterious ways. There's the answer, which isn't an answer.
Yeah. Oh, I gotta respond to my son. I'll do that.
Yeah, see, it's borrowing things like logic, morality. These are the arguments that creationists love to use, that you're borrowing from a Christian worldview. I just heard somebody talk about, we've known the earth was a sphere in Christianity before anybody else did. And it's like, no, that's not true. When the Christians, or the Jews really, were writing about it, it was about the same time that they figured out that the earth was a sphere. So it was common knowledge. It wasn't divine knowledge.
Yeah. Yep. Okay. Presenting
Only
Christian
took me
theism.
a few minutes Googling the dates to find that out.
Presenting Christian theism as a necessary precondition. Then Bahnsen offers Christian theism as a framework that can account for, can justify these features. Immaterial, universal, and invariant logic. Under Christian theism, an eternal, unchanging, rational God is the foundation of logical truths. Logic reflects the orderly mind of God. So what he's telling you is that there is a being like us that has a rational mind that makes things, and that thing created this eternal, unchanging universe that we live in. So that's his cosmological theory for why the universe is here. Okay. Do you buy that? I mean, is that any better? What the fuck?
Well, and once again, it's under Christian theism. Yeah, you're arguing for your God. That's what you're doing.
Yeah, here's the part where he's arguing with the people that would say that logic and numbers and universals are all in our mind. Logic is not a product of matter or culture. Well, it's a product of matter in space-time, but it's a reflection of God's unchanging nature. What they don't understand is that when you look at the mathematics of matter in space-time, right? Particles in space-time, when you create that Cartesian coordinate like I have here, okay, you see those little squares that I have? Okay, it's a Cartesian coordinate system. Okay, and you put particles at certain spots on this. All of logic, all of basically mathematics and everything derives from this stuff right here, from the fact that there's these relationships. This particle's way out there. This particle's way out there. There are fields, that basically affect different rings of these particles. All of that accounts for logic completely. And so it isn't just, and what they want to have you pretend is that, oh, it's just matter, that all the matter's in one spot. It's all right here, just stuff. And they want you to think about getting a pile of goop, right? Oh, will a goop create logic? No, not unless you put the goop somewhere. Like, I keep fucking drives me crazy that they underestimate the nature of things being separated by a certain amount of space, by structure in the world. That's what everybody says.
I got a question on being logical. Is being logical being insane? Because there's the saying that if you do the same thing over and over expecting different results, that's insane, right?
Yeah.
All right. Well, God had creation and he didn't like it, so he destroyed it. Yet he started over again after the flood with the same exact creation. So how is that logical?
Oh, nice.
That's my question.
Insane creator. Okay.
Yeah. But logical, there's my counter to it has to be logical. I don't think it's logical. The flood story would have made more sense if everything was different. But it's exactly the same as it was before the flood, including he didn't get rid of sin or the Nephilim or anything else, because the Nephilim became disembodied spirits. So it didn't get rid of the dang Nephilim either. The evil spirits are still running around, and they're actually more powerful now because they're disembodied. So there's my thing. Go. Doesn't sound logical to me.
The theory of the insane deity.
There we go.
Toted. Totted? We'll call him totted.
I'm gonna have to save that for a video title.
Right. Yeah. Yep. That's a good one.
You know, part of this conversation going in the side chat has made me notice this, and that is that we get criticized for presupposing things, but not presupposing God. In other words, we presuppose that there's a regularity to the universe, that the past is going to rule, laws are going to be the same in the future. We kind of presume that. We kind of presuppose that in our applying science and using science, but we do observe regularity. The laws of logic do exist in some sense, and we assume that they're going to continue to exist. So we do presuppose that the laws of logic are valid and are going to continue to be valid into the future. And then they say, well, we just presuppose God, but we don't know that God exists. And see, that's the thing. The thing that we're presupposing or being accused of presupposing, we know exist. We know are true now. We're just extending that into the future. But there is no proof of God. There is no reason to believe God exists. And then to presuppose him, that's what seems empty and irrational and unnecessary, is because there's no existence. Is there a thing that materialists or physicalists or naturalists, whatever you want to call them, actually presuppose that there is no evidence for, that there's no known example of?
Yeah. Well, the thing is, I do not presuppose anything about the future. I don't have to. I'm a Buddhist. Okay. Everything could dissolve at any moment. I could die at any moment. I don't presuppose anything about the future. What I do know is that the past is regular, that it goes back a long way, and everything I've seen. And I would bet on the future. I would bet on the sun rising tomorrow. I'll bet you guys $1,000 that the sun's going to rise tomorrow. I'm willing to bet on it, but I don't have. And
I'll bet that I'm going to wake up in my bedroom in my house. I'm not going to wake up in another country in another house.
God, when I'm an alcoholic, and back when I was using, I could never make that bet that I wasn't going to end up in another state or another country or somebody else's bed.
I know my brother used to wake up from a blackout driving in another state. It's like that.
Yeah, a friend of mine woke up in Iowa.
Yeah,
right after I think the inauguration, right? And he hadn't paid any attention to the president being elected and changing. And he turned on the radio and they were talking about President so-and-so. And then he didn't know what state he was in. And then the cops pulled him over and he was very confused. He thought he woke up in an alternate reality. It's like, oh my God.
My brother liked to go for a drive, especially if, he was in a mood or whatever, you know what I mean? He would put on the radio and go for a ride. That was his way of cooling off, He liked to go for a drive. Well, when he was inebriated, that little lizard brain or whatever kicked in and said, go for a drive. And he would, without even knowing it or even remembering it most of the time, he would go for a drive, and he would get very ugly when his wife would take away the keys because she knew what he was going to do. So she would hide the keys, and then he would be stumbling around saying, where's my keys? And it's like, you're not going to drive. And he was so out of it. He just, what do you mean I can't drive? I'm going to go for a drive. And it's like, no, you're not going to go for a drive. But sometimes he'd get a hold of the keys, and it's very worrisome. Okay, could have hurt somebody.
Jason S. and Austin are going at it. Stuff and things prove God. It's just lazy. Being able to know stuff proves God. It's too. You have faith in God. That's Austin. Trying to say, is just honest. So he says, why are you echo chambering your own? Why is that a straw man? It says right here that Bahnsen says it right here. He just declares that a sovereign personal God, whatever in the hell that is, meaning it's like humans, who upholds and governs like humans, creation, which is what humans do, provides, which is what humans do, a rational basis for expecting consistent patterns in nature. Regularity is not an accident, but flows from God's faithful sustenance of the universe. What the hell is that? You made that up.
That's just an assertion.
And that's wrong according to the Bible, because once again, the God suspends things. So it's not, I don't see how it's arguing for regularity when God steps in and irregulates it quite often in the Bible.
Yeah. Who makes the argument you just made? I'm not sure what the argument was. Maybe Austin and Jason can come in here and talk to us, because I put the link out for these people.
I think Austin's at work, Mike. I don't think he can do that.
Okay.
He's just listening.
Yeah, I mean, you're just making up something to account for these things that you say we can't account for, and you've just made up something that sounds like a human. Sounds like me. It sounds like a human being. I can account for the shelf I built in the garage, right? I built it. But do I think there's a super powerful form of me out under, like, enveloping the entire cosmos that created it? No. Where the hell did you get that from?
You just built that shelf because I wanted you to.
Yeah, right. Okay, objective morality. Moral norms flow from God's character. Right. That's pretty convenient, isn't it? So God is somebody like us who has moral norms. And if it were just my norms, then it would be subjective. But if it's God's norms, it's objective, right? How do you account for that? It's just as subjective if God thought it up as if I thought it up. Right and wrong have a true transcendent reference point, God's moral nature. You just made that up. I mean, this is really telling, this part of it.
Once again, God changes his mind in the Bible. God says do this, and then God says do that. So that's not accurate.
Reliability of cognitive faculties. If humans are created in God's image, or if God is created in a human's image, we have a God-given capacity to know and reason. If God is created in the human's image, then God has a human-given capacity to know and reason. And that's all you've done. You've just made a big human being. You've just created a big daddy in the sky. Me and my friend Mac, when we became Christians for a summer, we became Catholics on purpose as Buddhists. We wore it as a loose-fitting cloak. Basically, we called him Big Dad. We'd be walking down these dark country roads, with lynx and coyotes howling in the distance, talking to Big Dad. And once we saw this cloud formation that looked like God, and we were like, oh my God, it's Big Dad. I remember that night. We had a great time that night. But we read, all these Catholic books and biblical passages, and we just played with it for a whole summer. So we on purpose suspended our disbelief in God, and but always kept a little a tether to reality, to atheism, right? So in September we pulled the tether, and we were atheists again. It's pretty cool. You can do that if you're a Buddhist. You can adopt another belief. Okay, so this is just so obvious that they created God in humans' image, and they will never admit to that. What is wrong with them? Let's see. Okay, I'm at work right now. So, Jason, if I drop you an email, can you copy it down and give me an email? First time you see me stream. Oh, I don't have.
You just started doing that. I just did a side chat asking him to set something up with you by email. So why don't you give out your email address that you feel safe giving out, and he can contact you, and maybe y'all can get together for a talk.
Okay, this one isn't safe. This is my personal email, and
okay.
I don't hide from people. Anyway, my name is Mike Brusnak. If you send me an email, make sure you put your screen name in the email so I know who I'm talking to. If you're somebody else, send me an email from whatever account. We'll send something up. God could exist and not give a fuck about humans at all. There's an unnecessary. Yeah. Yeah, it's all contingent, made up. God could exist, and he made a universe that didn't behave logically or regularly, and we wouldn't be here talking about it. It would just be a bunch of particles flying around, not behaving according to any rules. Yeah, this part of it is really telling. Bahnsen then concludes, only Christian theism supplies a coherent, internally consistent account of these transcendental conditions. And this is where they read a little Kant, but they didn't really understand what Kant was saying, and they adopted this whole transcendental argument for religion. And it really is it is the most egregious thing in philosophy that's ever been written. Tag. It's horrible. Okay,
and
virtuous circularity.
Austin said something about that. Yeah, that doesn't lead them to knowing anything about that God. And pretty sure the Bible says you cannot know the mind of God. So it's always interesting that they can explain the mind of God and what God is and does and everything, when it pretty sure it says you can't know these things.
Did you ever see the George Carlin thing where he contrasts football with baseball? And
I have, but I don't remember the content of it.
Okay, it's like, football has this really tough things, and baseball has a diamond.
And you go home. I remember that part. Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. But anyway, so Bahnsen says, naturalism, has circularity, but Christianity, has virtuous circularity.
Mm-hmm.
It's so much.
There it is.
I always imagine George Carlin presenting this argument. Like, why is any circularity? What is the difference between the two kinds of circularity? I don't see why one is virtuous.
The virtuous is special pleading.
Okay, showing that your presupposition, once accepted alone, can make possible rational thought and consistent experience. It's self-attesting because there's no higher standard than God. That is circular. You're using that to prove God. It's just like it's just as vicious as anything else.
And you're assuming something that we don't know if it exists or not. We know what other things exist, such as laws of the universe, time, decay rates. We can assume those. That might be virtuous, but not a God, which there's no indication that God exists. You have to presuppose it, and therefore you could be wrong.
Hence, Bahnsen argues that although Christians must presuppose God to prove God, circular, God is the ultimate reference point. This is not an arbitrary circle because it uniquely makes sense of all the data of human experience, logic, science, morality. Now, here's the part where, okay, that's fair. So now it's a naturalist's turn to explain why a space-time particle universe, which we presuppose, like you presuppose God, explains all of morality, human experience, logic, science, consciousness, all of that. And that's what I do. That's what I work on. And I can come up with explanations for all of this shit. Morality
it's not unique. Isn't that what all religions try to do?
Let's see. Yeah.
I mean, Buddhism tries to explain these things, right? It explains the human experience and logic and science and morality.
Yep.
I don't like the word uniquely. I think all religions pretty much try to do the same things. It's kind of a primitive science, so to speak. They were trying to explain things.
Oh, Jason I'm not sure what he's saying about time.
This is the unique thing. I did a video on this where they were saying Christianity is unique. And it's like, well, yeah, because it's a different religion than other ones. And they were saying that different species are unique. And it's like, yes, that's why they're different species. The unique thing is pushed a lot, and it doesn't really mean anything. So
here's the challenge for naturalism, and of course it always has been, that we lack the metaphysical and epistemological resources to ground these preconditions. I do not. I've thought a great deal about my foundations for epistemology. And they claim that the triune God of the scripture provides the necessary preconditions. How? How other than brute force, he just did it. I mean, if you got more to say about that, about how God did it exactly and why God did it exactly that way, I might listen to that. But
you probably covered this already, but I'm looking at number 1 under putting it succinctly. Now you just moved it out of the way.
okay.
Rational inquiry science, and strike out morality because that's weird. Presuppose an environment in which logic is universal, nature is orderly, and no, we don't all assume morality is objective. We don't think rationally. Well, maybe rational inquiry does. I don't know. But there are plenty of people who don't believe morality is objective, and our minds are suited for truth. I could go along with that, except more like our minds are capable of discerning truth. But look what he's importing in unnecessarily, that morality is objective. Not everybody believes that. Sure, they're going to pull out the torturing babies for fun to get an emotional response out of people. But no, you can't put morality in there. That's not an axiomatic or presupposed condition of the universe.
Yeah. The accounting for those things in a natural framework, like for instance, truth. Okay, you are an organism, right? And the fact that you can live in a changing environment, in an environment that basically, is different from time to time, means that you have evolved some sense of basically how that environment works, right? To the point where, we got James here. So James, sorry for overrunning your stream, James. I didn't know you were streaming.
Well, James went too long. Mike tried to time it right. James, you didn't cooperate.
Yeah.
I enjoyed your stream, James, as always.
So the definition of truth is an organism's fit to the environment. That's truth, basically. How does an organism fit to a changing environment? We're going to do a delta environment. How do you fit to a changing environment? So basically, evolution designed us to pop out as little eggs and get jostled around by the world, and it basically, there's a fit to it, right? You got like this jagged line, right, of the organism, and oh shit, what the hell did you do to me? Why did you do that? Switched over, and then there is a fit of the organism to the world, right? So our neurons are of such a nature, and our bodies are of such a nature that we will adapt to the world around us. But evolution and natural selection required a little more than just adapting to a particular point in time, because arguably, if you adapted to only one environment, you could have had a number of different adaptations that weren't truth bearing, right? But if you're going to adapt to an environment that's changing a little bit, that's different, like your environment is different when you live at home with your parents and when you get out into the world. If you're going to be able to adapt to multiple environments, you are going to have a better fit to the world, to truth. So truth, as I define it, is a fit to the environment, nothing more. There is no truth with a capital T. That's basically some objective truth from the world. You have to have an organism that fits to the environment in order to have truth. Does that make sense?
Well, one of the arguments that's thrown back is, why does an atheist care about what is true? So how would you answer that, Mike?
Why would I care? Because I'm an emotional creature with goals and needs and preferences and all these human things that we've developed, and that's why I care. I mean, I care that things are true, and I guess looking at it philosophically, I care about true things over false things, because truth, false things will only work in a specific instance. You remember where that last diagram where I had a changing environment? Okay, the environment's changing. Okay.
Yep.
Now, if I have a false belief, it might work at point T0. Okay. But it's not going to work out here. Okay. Only true beliefs are going to fit the world in a general manner. So true beliefs are going to work all of the time. False beliefs.
What happens if you come around the garage too fast when it's icy out, Mike?
Yeah, there's a truth kind of there's a truth that we do care about, and that is my car on a collision course with that tree true or
I care
false?
about that.
I care about that because I want to get away from that tree and not hurt myself and not hurt my car. There's a whole lot of things like that. Is this budget that I have, this budget limit that I have of $100, has my spending overtaken that? Has it gone over that? That's either true or false. I care about that because that tells me if I'm going to have enough money to spend on groceries or something. So yeah, we do care about truth and true statements. So I think what they're doing is equivocating on truth and not specifying what kind of truth they're really talking about.
They're trying to make it some objective, absolute moral thing, which is a religious argument, absolute and objective outside of everything else, outside of space and time, is a religious argument. So they're not doing an internal critique when they say that. Like an atheist is a human being with all sorts of, hormones, emotions, all kinds of things going on, a life history. And we care about truth. We care about whether or not we're going to get hit by a bus. So, I mean, it's just they're trying to take us into that religious realm of theirs and then come back and claim they're doing an internal critique when they're not. They're doing an external critique.
That's what I told my kids when I was taught them how to drive. It's like, if you think you're going to beat the laws of physics, you're not. Okay?
Yeah, you're not. Yeah.
If it's slippery out, you have to slow down. Okay. Yeah. Period. You're not. It doesn't matter what you believe, or if you believe you have the fanciest car or the fanciest 4-wheel drive. You see that snow plow sliding off the side of the road? Okay. It doesn't matter, right? And same thing, trying to beat a train, right? Don't try to beat a train, because
beating a train,
if you think the train's going to stop, it doesn't stop for like a quarter of a mile or something, right? Yeah. No, these are things that you want to know are true. So there's many reasons why for the most part, I don't think my kids are believers, although I've always told them they can do whatever they want.
Now, how's that question typically formed?
It applies, yeah.
Yeah, how's that question typically formed? Why ought I to believe things that are true? Is that how it's usually framed?
Yeah, yep.
Yeah.
Well, there's
I just believe anything.
If it's why do I care if things are true, that everything I said speaks to why I care that things are true.
Self-preservation, right?
Yeah, but if why ought I to believe things are true? Why there's no ought to it?
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
See, Scott understands.
Hello, Nitty.
Hey, I want to share something absolutely ridiculous that's happening in my state.
Okay.
And everyone should be aware that this is what we're playing with now.
Oh no! What state?
We're in the same
Ohio.
state. We're in the same
state. This is I-75 South.
Okay. Oh my God! What is this?
This is one of our major highways.
Are those swastikas? Those are.
You're damn right they are.
Somebody's
Who are these people?
They're Trump voters.
Oh my God.
Mm-hmm.
Oh well, Trump might adopt that, or he might get a tattoo.
You see, I told people, sorry to totally derail, but I'm so shocked.
No, fine.
We're shocked in the same, and I'm shocked too that kind of crap is unexcusable.
I said this a couple months ago, that these people are going to be emboldened, bolstered, and encouraged to do this if Trump wins.
Mm-hmm.
Period. And this is why channels like ours need to be pissed and not shut up. Even if we're tiny. Because if they start shutting down the big ones, right, we're still a community that'll take longer to get to.
Right. Yeah, they'll round us up eventually. But
Just watch your comments on YouTube. I had one taken down on me yesterday.
Well, I am pretty careful about
Yep.
the what's the word what I like? Euphemism? No, instead of saying like certain outright words, if you use the euphemisms, they usually stay.
Yeah.
So this is going on right now. There was also a thing in November.
Hey, Speed, you're echoing.
Yeah.
You're all echoing. I think it's Nitty. Yep.
It's Nitty. Nitty's making us echo a little bit.
You're all right now. Yep.
Oh, you always think it's my fault, Scott. Jeez.
I do.
I think Nitty had the video on.
So much.
I think he had the video on.
No, I didn't. My room just sucks. If I don't have my headphones on, it sucks. That's why I always wear my headphones. But at any rate, in November we had a literal March of the Goons.
Yep.
Unbelievable. Well, now it's believable. What world do I live in?
I know.
This is the darkest timeline.
Yeah, I just don't know. My sons have been going at it for like 3 days now with our adopted Trump friend, and I can't get into it anymore because I just sort of like the only thing I can do is to wait. I guess we can, like you say, we're obligated to point it out and keep bringing it up, but I think we're really fucked right now. I don't think there's shit we can do about this. This has got to play itself out.
So like, oh shoot, I actually have to go. Someone showed up early to my house, but anyway.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Well, we'll watch for
probably
that
hop
one.
on later. All right. Yeah.
Okay. Bye.
Later.
Yeah, I'm almost done anyway, though, unfortunately. So, James, what do you think of tag? The tag, I wish you had been here when we went over it in detail, but
Yeah, sorry. I attended only to stream for about 20, 40 minutes. And then I just got so caught up in it. I don't know when you walked in, but I was quite angry at one point. And I wore myself out being angry about the stuff that fundamentalist was saying. And I shouldn't, but that's where I was at about it. So I went over to I went almost 3 hours, I think, today. I shouldn't have done that.
wow. I will
normally
have to watch that stream.
Yeah, I normally don't get angry, but the more he talked, I told him, I'm like, I'll review it, I'll go through it, and I'll try to be as charitable and as patient and, find as much agreement as I can. And it was just like when I read Rebecca Davis's book, Bridges of Love and Understanding. I promised her that I would be charitable and fair and everything else. And I'm looking for agreement. I'm looking to help her build that bridge. And I meant it. But then by the time I got to the 4th chapter, I just couldn't anymore, right? Because she was saying such horrible things. And she was actually advocating for violence against non-believers. And I'm like, how do you build bridges of love and understanding while advocating for violence against non-believers? And I just, it's that kind of a thing. I went in with the best of intentions and optimistic. And then I got angry about the shit that they were saying that were so unfair and egregious. And I just lost my shit. And I'm like, I'm done. I'm just done with them. So that's where I was on.
Yeah,
you posted a link.
Yeah, I don't know. Today's stream, what did I call it? I can't even remember what I called today's stream. Something about the hiddenness, divine hiddenness, right? That was the topic of the thing I'm responding to. He's got a 3-hour video. Daniel Apologetics, sure. I ran into him the other day. I don't really know the channel well. I'm new to it.
So what is there, in a nutshell, what is their idea about why there's divine hiddenness? What is this about?
I've only got partway through it, but so far my understanding is that, God's not really hiding. You're pretending you can't see him, right? Because you're arrogantly judging God.
Oh,
oh,
I'm sorry, I'm crying. I'm weeping with despair.
And we hate
I have done I have done 10 grams of mushrooms and looked for God, and I swear I did not see him.
Right.
Did anybody read this book that was so wildly popular a while back called The Shack? Not about Shaquille O'Neal. There was a Christian novel called The Shack.
Oh no, what is that one?
And it was about a man whose little girl was murdered by some serial killer, and he, in his grief, in his questioning of God and his anger at God, he got to talk to some weird form of Jesus and the Holy Spirit and God the Father. And it's such an example, this book, of polishing a turd and not admitting that you still have a turd in your hand. Because
there's a 2017 film on it too. So.
In the end, the girl is still dead, but they're fantasizing that the little girl's going, "Daddy, don't cry because I'm okay. I'm with Jesus."
I'm okay.
And but a serial killer in God's world that he made still was able to murder a little girl. That's the problem with the world. That's the turd. And everything they said about it, or everything the author creatively wrote about it, is just putting polish on a turd. Why do we have the turd? Why are you holding on to a turd? Is the question. And it's just never answered, never dealt with. And that kind of reminds me of the divine hiddenness thing. Well, you're just not admitting that he's there. You know, that's a turd. That's not even being polished.
Do they have Dairy Queen in heaven and Kentucky Fried Chicken?
You have to watch Cat Kerr.
Cat Kerr?
Yeah, the pink-haired lady.
Okay.
Oh, yeah, they have everything. You can eat all you want and never gain any weight in heaven.
Dairy Queen and KFC? Oh, my God.
Whatever you want.
I'm going.
It's all there.
I'm signing up.
Cat Kerr's heaven is awesome. It's just freaking awesome.
Make that Pascal's wager right now.
Volcano slides. You can slide right down the lava and not get burnt, and just all kind of things. It's awesome.
That sounds kind of.
Everybody gets a mansion, and you can decorate it any way you want.
James, I hope I did not insult your interpretation of that divine hiddenness video by bringing up The Shack. It just kind of triggered me that maybe you're just not admitting that he's there. It kind of triggered me and made me think of The Shack for some reason.
No, I mean, it correlates. And, I'm not fragile in that way. I'm fragile in some ways, but not about this kind of stuff, right? It made me angry that the guy, see, I don't mind for people to have a coping mechanism born out of desperacy. Like they're just trying to stop their own brain from snapping, right? So you lose somebody, and I kind of understand it. You lose somebody to a tragic circumstance, a vulnerable child of yours, and you kind of go crazy about it. And you're like, I need to believe in anything that makes me feel okay with this. And so somebody exploited that opportunity to sell them on some bullshit. But I don't mind that part of it. The part that I mind, really, is that they're judging people who don't embrace the narrative. They're saying that we're awful people, right? They're questioning our moral character. They're questioning our life choices. They're demonizing us as a people. That is not conducive to a healthy society or even to healthy families, right? You spread those ideas to a family who then holds their children to those ideas, right? And so the child thinks differently, feels differently, and they're afraid to say so because they don't want to be judged by their family or ostracized from their family. And so they don't say how they really feel about it. Or if they do, then they have to pay the consequences for that instead. It is not a healthy and fair thing to do for human families and human individuals, human psychology, sociology, society. It's not healthy, right? For an individual to embrace some kind of a bullshit narrative because they're trying to stop from breaking, right? They're trying to find some way where they can sleep at night because of the tragedy they've endured. My heart goes out to them. Do I think it's reasonable? No, but the human mind is not all that reasonable anyways. Right. And they're dealing with an impossible situation. And if they need to believe in a thing that allows them some semblance of peace to be able to go on to the next day, Okay, fine. If that's what it takes. Right. But it's when they start making that other people's business and other people's problem, damning us for not participating, then I have a problem with it.
Yeah. I know people probably hate when I bring this up, but a couple days ago, I was listening to one of these streams about, meeting your dead relatives in heaven. And I thought, if I could just die and wake up and talk to my daughter again, holy shit. I mean, that is not something that I'm avoiding on purpose, right?
Right.
Like,
right.
I just don't want to believe. I mean, if that, that would be an unbelievable thing for me to be able to do that and talk to my mom and my dad and all this stuff. But the best we can do is to, go for a lonely walk in the woods and do the talking, but we're not going to do any hearing. We're not going to get anything back. But shit, what a fucking, what a piece of shit kind of bait that they would give to a grieving parent, right?
Delahunty answered it the same way. He said, sure, I'd like to wake up after death and play cards with grandma again. And it's like, that struck a chord with me because those were good times playing cards with my grandma. It's like,
fuck,
who wouldn't want to go play cards with grandma again? Right? Of course I would,
I'd be able to finish figuring out how the Drosophila embryo develops. I mean, which I'm never going to figure out by finite lifetime, but I mean, Christ,
well, you don't have to figure it out. You're going to know everything when you.
Oh yeah. Oh well, that would be no. That would be a problem. I would not want that because I would want there to be, And if I had KFC every day, I'd really fucking get sick of it. It's just like, no, I don't want that unlimited heaven thing. I want the metered heaven.
Yeah, you need to check out some Cat Kerr videos when she's talking about heaven. It's very entertaining.
Do you know what I really want heaven to be? What my life is right here, right now. That's heaven to me. I'm already here, so don't need to go anywhere.
You want to spend eternity arguing presuppositionalism?
Probably. Well, no, I'm not going to spend eternity doing. My life is changing right here, right now. Right? We're done with the tag argument. I mean, Christ.
Well, and just the thing, like I say, I bring up playing cards with my grandma, and it's like I smile. Right? That's part of my reality. That's. So would it be different in heaven? Well, I've already done it, right? And it's. I think it would be great to do it. Yeah, she's right. The memory's still alive in my mind.
Yeah. Pretty cool. I'll have to listen to your stream. Well, how long did you go on?
3 hours.
Oh my goodness, James.
I thought he was winding down at 90 minutes, and he doubled it. So he was irritated.
Sure,
we're coming up on 2 hours, and I kind of want to get out of here. So
yeah.
Anyway, maybe. But if you're not doing anything, James, I'd appreciate it. I went over this tag argument, and I kind of have it up in. I went over Greg Bonson's argument. I'll tell you what I'll do. I will do one better. I will share you the link. How about that?
Sure. Yeah, do that.
Let me see. Create link. Okay, create link. And do I get to share to people?
And in the end, it's just my God is right. And you can use this argument for anything to prove whatever you want is right. So it doesn't really mean anything.
Sure.
As far as I'm concerned.
I'll put it in our group message, a link to that chat. But it goes over Greg Bonson's tag argument. And I think it's really ChatGPT does a good job of making it plainly stupid. And they wouldn't do that in their books. They like to obfuscate, and they make it quite a bit different. But anyway, okay, it's in our message.
And I used your favorite ChatGPT here, Mike. And when it replaces God with Bigfoot in the tag argument. This creates an intentionally humorous or absurd argument.
Oh, really? Cool. I'd like to see that. Yeah, maybe you could share that one with us. That's pretty cool.
But if you would have a better argument if you replaced God or Bigfoot with 57 Chevy 57 Chevy pickup, because we know they exist.
No, I want the sedan. Sorry.
So you're more justified in presupposing
there it is, Mike.
That with a God or with a Bigfoot, which there's no credible evidence of existing.
Right. What I would like to do is create a cartoon skit, where we're having that conversation with a Christian presupper, and we're like, you know what? Let's just go right to the horse's mouth. I have a surprise guest for everyone today, and it's God, right? And then we bring God in, and so the conversation shifts to God expressing their opinions and their understanding of reality, and then I ask God, on what do you ground that? And what do you ground your epistemology? You're right.
Oh, do a precept on God. Oh,
Yeah.
that's great.
Because
Do a Darth Dawkins on God. Oh,
yeah.
That would be worth hiring some actors for and writing a script and working up a short movie.
Absolutely.
Well, ChatGPT seems to understand that. Yeah, if you replace God with Bigfoot, it just sounds silly. It's like, doesn't it sound silly if you replace Bigfoot with God?
The source of all moral value.
We need to find a willing presuppositional evangelical Christian to ask the same question the same way on their computer to see what kind of answer, or on their phone, obviously.
Yeah.
To see what kind of answer they get. Because, is ChatGPT gaslighting us and making us read what it thinks we want it, or it computes that we want to see? Well,
you notice I didn't ask it any of that, right? I just said, replace God with Bigfoot in the tag argument. It put on itself on the end there that this is absurd and ridiculous. I didn't ask it that at all.
But it would be very interesting
to see. Wasn't a critique,
the screenshots from a believer's computer, based, because of their search history and searches that they do on ChatGPT and everything. I just wonder how different it would be.
I've actually gone through with ChatGPT and replaced it with naturalism and argued with it and had it come back at me, and it comes back at every stage with by reaffirming my argument and then giving me counters to it, and it keeps giving you counter after counter after counter, and I've called you up, Scott, and said that I've been arguing with ChatGPT all day and I'm really bad at it. That's what's going on. So problem is fundamental. Okay, so I've got it up here. Where the hell is it here? Okay, start cam. Basically, so I said, if I replace God with the natural universe as it is, what is wrong with my claiming that is the foundation? Let's see, it's reasoning. So it is not enough to simply posit an ultimate foundation. Rather, one must show that this foundation actually explains and accounts for the core features of our experience, like universal logic laws and everything like that. Okay, so justifying induction, invariance, and universality. What do we got here? How then do we get abstract, universal, and unchanging laws? Okay. So I'm going to ask it, how do we get...
Hey guys, I've really enjoyed this, but I've got to go get ready to do some work in the barn. So y'all have a great evening, and nice talking to everybody.
You too.
Okay.
Okay, Scott. See you later.
Bye-bye.
Farmer Scott. Okay, how do we get universal and abstract laws from God? We just do, I think. I don't know. Let's see. Divine consistency. From a presuppositional or broadly Christian theistic perspective, universal and abstract laws of logic are understood to be grounded in God's own nature. Oh, fuck. Okay. I don't think we need to go any further. So,
well, God is, and as you were already saying, the universe is.
So why
God
is
doesn't
nature
add
not
anything to
grounded?
it.
Why is God not, or nature not grounded in its own nature? Or reasoning. Why is nature not grounded in its own nature? From the vantage point of the presuppositional, okay, the claim nature's ground usually means that physical reality taken by itself lacks some essential features needed to be ultimate. It doesn't explain itself fully and cannot serve as a self-sufficient foundation. How the fuck can God? I mean, it's just like, so you see, you can get ChatGPT to argue with you all day long. Something is contingent, it might not have existed at all, or it could have been different. Necessity, by contrast, a truly ultimate foundation is typically understood as something necessary. It's necessary for us to be here. It's necessary. So, I mean, it's got to be the way it is. Otherwise, we wouldn't be here. I don't understand. Nature is in flux. No, it ain't. There are universal invariant laws that are not in flux. So it's wrong about all this shit. But anyway, it is fun. You can get it to do a lot of fun things. So
Yeah.
maybe we'll go over these counterpoints and go through it one at a time. But I like you can go on all day with ChatGPT. Okay, when presuppositionals say nature is not grounded in its own nature, they mean nature by itself, contingent, ever-changing material system, does not offer a self-sufficient or necessary account. It is not an ever-changing material system. It is a space-time particle reality that is necessary in order to support an ever-changing material system. So basically, there's something underlying reality that creates this space-time Cartesian coordinate system with particles in it. And that is necessary. It's as necessary as God. So it's just playing with words and trying to keep like moving the chess piece of God up to and over one, and running from the problem. Yeah. But I don't understand how God accounts for it either. God would have exactly the same problems as my saying that there has to be a space-time Cartesian coordinate system with particles in it. Necessary. I don't know. What's wrong with that? Do you see a hole in that, James?
Do I see a hole in what you're saying or what GPT is saying?
And what I'm saying.
Well,
I mean, they're trying to say it's just matter, right? Just matter. And they want you to think, oh, it's just a glump of stuff. No, it's not. It's the universe as it is. It's space and time, which is a very big thing. And those fields in space time that interact in a certain way. And that is what accounts for all of this stuff. Those base physical laws. And they are necessary. So why is that different than saying God is necessary? I don't see the difference.
Me neither. They're just arbitrarily asserting it. It has to be this. Well, why does it have to be that? Because it has to be this. Well,
it has to be. Right.
Because it's my God.
Anyway. Yeah, we just refuse to see that there's something else that makes it. And then if they would get into how God does it, then they would have to start talking about God thinking and planning and creating a piece at a time with his pencil and paper and doing all of this stuff on purpose, contingently, right? Mm-hmm. And with our natural universe, we're saying, no, it's not fucking contingent. It's the only way for this thing to be here right now. There is it's absolutely necessary.
Well, we were talking about it before, Mike, and that somebody else had brought it up, that if they would just declare things a miracle, they could just say it's a miracle. No matter what, it's a miracle. But when they try to explain things, using like the creationists trying to use science and explain Noah's Ark, then it all falls apart. When if they just say it's a miracle, you can just say, okay, it's a miracle.
Sure.
And this is another example of that, where they're trying to use, philosophy or whatever, or some kind of God of the gaps in there. And it's
So
same thing.
If Jesus took a loaf of bread and he suddenly created 1,000 loaves of bread out of it, what would happen to the air that was displaced by those loaves of bread?
Yeah.
I mean, they never talk about that. Well, he miraculously cuts a piece of space out and replaces it with bread, right? More miracle, and it's like, okay.
Well, Bill and I made a good point. Yeah, Bill and I made a good point. By their numbers, we should see species appearing in our yards all the time.
Oh, hell yeah. Yeah, there should be.
So if I was just sitting here and this new species just showed up in my yard and started chewing some of my wife's flowers, I'd say, wow, that again would be the same to if I woke up in a different bedroom in a different country every day, but it doesn't. You have to follow the rules that are in place, and it doesn't really matter if it's God or if it's aliens, a simulation, a brain in a vat. None of those arguments make any difference, except when they say it's all suspended. And then I don't understand the argument of why you're trying to argue for the regularity and everything. If you're just going to say, well, it gets suspended on a whim, that's not keeping the regularity. So I don't see the argument that God keeps a regularity, because it doesn't.
I think ChatGPT is having trouble. I gave it a tough job. My koi
burned
turkey.
it up. You burned it up.
Koi turkey.
You finally reached that question, and the smoke is coming out of its ears. And paradox.
Well, there it is. Wait a minute. Okay, that is not what I asked for. That's kind of what it would look like. It had big tail feathers. Okay. Here's the coyote turkey hybrid. No, it's not. That's really bad. Oh my God. Oh, that's bad. Jeez, let me down. I need a good. You have a better drawing AI, don't you, Dave?
It doesn't always cooperate. You have to tweak it. Yeah, sometimes, like I was saying, if you do a rock band, ask it to do some kind of rock band. You'll have a guitar player, you'll have bass, you'll have a singer and everything. And then you got a drummer sitting over in the corner with sticks in their hand. Or they're behind the drums and they've got their legs crossed over the drums, or it doesn't understand what a drummer does. I was putting Bigfoot playing the drums, and I couldn't get Bigfoot. All of them were bad. It just didn't understand putting sticks in its hand and playing drums. So some things it's still getting better on. Other times I'm very vague, and it was like reading my mind, and it gave me exactly what I was asking or what I wanted. Yeah. So
I thought it did a good job with the squirrel looking for the magic acorn in the sky.
And then of course it has gotten better at giving people 5 fingers. So that's an improvement. I have noticed that, because for a while, it was giving you 8 or 10 fingers, and it was like, so it's getting there. It's getting there.
Yeah.
But it learns when you tell it, enough times, no, people have 5 fingers. It's going to start making a file that says when you make a person, it has 5 fingers.
Okay. Oh, I'm catching up on my chat. Okay. So I kind of want to go away now.
All right.
There was a book, Divine Hiddenness, a Christian Response, that you. Oh, it's a free ebook?
Yeah.
Free ebook. Ooh. I don't know if it's worth the bits to download it. I don't know.
So he's got the video there. I just responded to the video. Like, I'd play it for a minute and talk about it. I really got myself worked up. I shouldn't let myself get angry about it. What are you going to do, right? I don't care what people believe. They can believe the craziest, wackiest shit. Have fun with it. But when they feed it out into the world that we're evil if we don't agree with them, then I got a problem with that. And when they sit there and act like their religion is the ultimate source of goodness and wonder in the world while it's destroying wives, I have a problem with that. And they're trying to indoctrinate other people into it so that they'll program their children and abuse their children. I have a problem with that. All right, stop fucking with people's lives. Sorry, and then we're good. I don't care what you believe, and I think that should be an easy line to draw. And for some reason, their brains just can't process it.
You can cuss. You're on Mike's channel.
Oh, yeah. Good job.
So this guy, second Earth Age Promotions. Nitty, is it 100% objective fact that there's no such thing as 100% objective fact? So here we have the liar's paradox, right? There are no objective facts, period. So that counters both of the phrases in this thing and renders it meaningless. So another rhetorical trick, to stump the atheist.
Yeah.
I don't know if he's being facetious or whatever. But
I think he's being sincere.
I don't know. You know this person?
Talking about Daniel Apologetics?
No, Second Earth Age Promotions. The guy that did that.
Yeah, I don't know
the
that.
nitty thing. Yeah. It could be just being facetious. Yep, you can always create a little paradox. We figured that much out. Anyway,
Mike's doing the chat GPT and he's making it smoke. The magic smoke is escaping.
This is that guy's video. So it's a Christian Response audiobook. Okay. How far did you get with this guy?
In the 3 hours it took me to talk about it, probably 10 minutes in. Like,
what are we gonna do? What the hell are we gonna do?
We know that we all know that feeling.
yeah. Fact.
Anyway, I have to go find a news article on what Nitty just told us about Ohio, if that shit's still going on. I mean, it's just like, God, these people. It happened in 2016 when Trump got elected. He made it okay to be a goddamn racist Nazi asshole. Like, what the hell? Oh, JG.
Ohio. I say you go down south, and as soon as you start getting so many miles down, the three crosses start showing up everywhere. So it's
like, you know what else
crossing the Mason-Dixon line, in Ohio.
Do you know what else? When I was driving from North Carolina, like, I would see these giant crosses off in the distance, and right next to them was a billboard for some sex toy shop.
Yeah,
like over and over again. And in Minnesota, I think there's like one billboard, and it was controversial, for sex toy shops. But down south, they were everywhere, and I'm like, what is going on here?
I drove all over Ohio, and there's this line.
The choice is yours.
As soon as you cross it, there's crosses.
You mean to be there? Oh, you mean choose between the sex toy shop and the cross?
Right.
That's not going to be a difficult choice to make. I mean, that cross is way too big to do.
The internet killed the adult toy store.
That cross is way too big to get the job done there, JG.
The standby over here is shut down. There's weeds growing in the parking lot. The internet sure killed a lot of that.
What wisdom do you bring to us to this heathen lot?
I saw that you're going after Jay Dyer. You serious?
Oh, yeah, definitely. He's
we did before.
I know you guys never found the number 7.
I found the number 7. I explained it to you. You just didn't hear me. You just don't want to believe. That's your problem. You don't want to believe.
I missed that conversation. I didn't hear it.
We were talking about 7 coconuts. Basically, that seven actually is something that we discover in the universe. That numericity is everywhere. You just don't want to believe in it. You don't want to see it. You don't have any faith. You lack faith is your problem. I keep telling you.
So as a physicalist, you implement faith into the worldview by just saying that it's necessary.
Yeah. There's no other way for us to be here talking without that space-time coordinate system with particles in it that behave in the way that they behave. There's no other possibility. There's no other way it could have been. God could not have created it any other way. Right?
I would agree with you that faith is necessary. Yeah, I would agree with you that faith is necessary.
Absolutely.
And basically, it's a component in everything you can point out. But what I would question you on is, if you're a physicalist or an empiricist, you don't have the data to actually prove that claim. It's just another faith claim.
Prove what claim?
That you need faith.
Okay. Yeah, it's a faith claim. I have
Right,
faith
you're
that I
going
need
outside of
faith.
you'd be going outside of your worldview.
No, I'm applying the same faith to needing faith. I need faith. I'm a human being, and I know that I exist by faith. That's the way my mind works. That's the way my brain is.
I understand the claim. I don't disagree with it. I'm saying, as a physicalist, you'd be going outside of your worldview. You don't have the
Why?
empirical data to support the claim.
I do too. Neuroscience tells you that you need faith to exist. To operate as a human being every day, you must rely on faith. And I can show you that with
that. How are you applying that to empirical data in neuroscience?
you cannot rationally, the brain is not capable of rationally assessing everything in your environment and making logical, rational conclusions about everything. At some point, you rely on faith. When you reach out for something, you don't
I'm agreeing
reason
with
your
you.
way to it.
Again, Mike,
Right.
I'm agreeing with you in your
Okay.
claim. What I'm pointing out to you is on your worldview, you can't account for that.
Oh, why not?
You don't have the empirical data to justify that claim.
I just told you neuroscience will show you what brains are capable of, what humans are capable of. It'll show you that humans need faith in order to operate.
It's a non sequitur.
So hold on. How are we defining faith, guys? Define that for me.
Yeah, well, faith is like when faith is when you move, you act to do something, right? You take some action in the world, and faith is when you just do it without completely reasoning everything through or reading about it or whatever. You just reach out and grab your cup. So that's an act of faith. Another thing about faith is when you emotionally accept that you don't know something and you just say, well, I have faith that this works. I have faith that the universe is working exactly as it should. So it's kind of an emotional substrate, and you can look at neuroscience, you can start dissecting the brain. And for me to have that conversation with you JG, you're way out of your fucking depth.
No, what I'm saying to you, Mike, is I'm not disagreeing with you about faith. Where we part ways, or what I'm pointing out, is that you can point to neuroscience and point to brain scan, whatever you want to, the pinball machine inside the skull, and say, look, this is happening, that's happening. What I'm saying is you can't put together empirical evidence for faith itself. You're just saying you need it.
How do you do that?
Hold on. You can't make the justification empirically. That's what I'm saying.
How do you justify it? How do you justify faith empirically?
Well, I don't justify it empirically. I don't think it's material. I don't think it's physical.
How do you justify it?
Well, let me say something to you. First of all, my point is I don't think it's physical, so I wouldn't go to justify it empirically, right? That's what I'm saying is the problem with your claim as a physicalist, because I when I talk to people, I talk to them worldview to worldview, right?
We're talking about your worldview now. How do you justify faith?
Well, I mean, I justify faith because it's part of reality. It's not a part of a physical reality, though.
That's the same thing I said. I said it's part of reality.
Right, but you're a physicalist.
So, as I understand it, JG is saying that faith grounds itself, and you're saying that faith, but you're saying that faith is grounded in empiricism, right?
Neuroscience.
Yeah,
right.
It's not. I mean, that's what I'm saying. It's not empirically verified.
It's an
immaterial ideal. It's an immaterial
faith
idea.
is something that you made up, JG, and you can't justify it at all.
No, Mike. What I'm saying to you is, it's an immaterial idea that you're bringing into.
Well, what the hell is an immaterial idea? What is an immaterial idea?
Faith.
You just went around in a circle.
Well, hold on.
You haven't justified faith.
It's a very small circle when faith grounds itself. It's a dot. It's not even a circle anymore. But here's the thing. Like, I don't really understand what either of you guys are saying about faith, right? If faith just means trust that you don't have to think about, well, you might not be thinking about it consciously, but you're thinking about it subconsciously based on all your prior experiences with having reached out your hand to grab a cup that has tea in it, right? So
the brain doesn't actually work that way. It makes all kinds of shortcuts, James. None of it's rational. You make all kinds of shortcuts.
Well, I think it's none of. I don't agree with you, Mike, but I don't want to hijack the conversation. So keep going.
Okay.
I actually
you and I will have to talk about mind at some point, James, because
Sure.
there is no such thing as a subconscious. Anyway.
All right.
Okay, JG, ground faith for me in your view.
I mean, I ground reality in God, so faith is part of that reality.
Ground reality in God. What does that even mean? I ground reality. I ground it in Cheetos. What are you talking about?
Well, let me tell you what I hear when someone says that. When a Christian,
you're going to tell. He asked me what so he asked me what I'm saying, and you're going to tell him what you hear.
Well, yeah. because I'm telling, because
I can't really stay anyway. It's fine, but I got to drop off here. I just wanted to pop in because I was surprised you're going to go after Jay Dyer in the tag.
Jay Dyer is an imbecile.
Even if you don't agree with Jay Dyer and you don't like him, if you put that aside, you can obviously see he's well studied. He's quite brilliant. I mean, I know you're not going to want to say that because you don't.
He's a well studied imbecile. Yeah, he's a well-studied imbecile.
Yeah,
but
sure.
Yeah, okay, we got you in a corner, so you need to go. We all need to.
No, I'm not saying. You guys are kind of you guys are a little bit immature or something. I mean, I didn't say.
No, we got you in a corner. You
What's
can't
the corner?
justify faith.
Faith is justified.
You justify faith with faith, and then you start talking about God, and then you start talking about immaterial things, and I don't know what you mean.
No. Look, Mike, I was pointing out you can't justify faith empirically, and you can't. So you tried to flip the script,
and you can't either. So what? So we can't. I can justify it with neuroscience.
Damn, dude, you're going into a classic atheist tu quoque where you say, oh, you can't do it either. You haven't actually justified the claim that you said you could justify. And once questioned properly, you can't. And then you go into a logical fallacy saying, no, you do it. You can't do it either. So you're actually admitting that you can't justify it.
I can justify it. Okay. Faith is a squeaky noise that a bunch of primates make to each other. And it has a certain meaning to us. And that meaning is basically an emotional feeling that is natural to a human organism with a human nervous system, and that feeling of leaning back into something. Like, have you ever been in those exercises where there'll be a bunch of people behind you and you have to fall backwards?
This is not justification. This is just an explanation that you're giving the story.
It's right. That is justification and explanation. What is justification to you? How do you explain God?
This is simple, Mike. On a physicalist worldview, justification would be empirical evidence. You don't have that for faith.
Empirical evidence.
Yes.
All of neuroscience is empirical evidence for the kind of faith I'm talking about. But you're talking about a different. You're talking about an immaterial faith, and I want you to tell me what it is, and I want you to tell me how God justifies it.
I know you do. I know you do, Mike. But what I was pointing out to you is that on a physicalist worldview, you rely on empirical data to justify your claims. When you bring faith into it, you can't do that. Now you want me to justify it because you can't actually do it. I'm not buying the story you're telling me. You're just telling me a bunch of details.
I don't believe in empirical data, so leave that one off the table. Okay.
What are you talking about?
I don't believe in empiricism. I'm not an empiricist. Okay.
What do you think of physicalist?
I don't believe in sense data. I don't believe in all that stuff.
A physicalist is a version of empiricism. What are you talking about?
For you, it is. You're straw man in physicalism.
Okay, why don't you tell me what the difference between an empiricist and a physicalist is then?
A physicalist believes that everything is material, physical in a space-time coordinate system. That's physicalist. Right. That everything is there.
So
there's
if it's
nothing
physical,
to justify that. That is a presumption, definitely. It's
right. So that itself is not physically proven, correct?
It's a necessary presumption to make sense out of anything for us to be having this conversation, for us to be here. So you can leave that one.
Borrowing from the metaphysical, and you're trying to say it's a necessary presumption because you can't justify.
You say God. You say God, and I say the physical universe. We're talking about exactly the same level of thing, right? You can't justify faith. Why can't you justify faith? Why do you have faith? Tell me why.
I agreed with you originally, right? I said it's necessary. Of course,
Faith is
like everything
necessary?
we do. Hold on, everything we do, the conversation we're having, the memories we rely on, induction, that the future will
Okay.
be like the past, uniformity in nature, identity over time. These things all require faith, as does the scientific process. What I'm saying to you,
Believing in
why do you
them
have to interrupt
requires
so
faith.
much?
Okay.
Why do you have to interrupt so much?
Because I'm trying to correct you. You're talking about faith like it's something that's separate. No, believing in these things requires faith. In order to believe, you have to be a human being. Okay,
In
go
order
ahead.
to believe, you have to be a human being. How is that
That's
helpful?
right.
How is that helpful information right now?
In order to have a language and to be talking, we have to be human beings, right?
Okay, so we need to be human beings to be talking. That's helpful right now.
Okay. Do you agree
See,
with
the
it?
reason I came in, Mike, is to point out when you're going after Dyer and even Jimbob, they're at a higher tier than me, and you can't even get through me. You're just spouting
Oh, they're
nonsense.
on a higher. Yeah, no, you can't, because you follow
Hi,
them
Mike.
around like a puppy dog, and you never
Bye, Mike.
consider how much of an
You know that they won't even.
imbecile.
I mean, you can talk to Jimbob, but J. Dyer will talk to you for about a minute before he's going to point out that you're smuggling in metaphysics and faith as a physicalist. It doesn't even work. It's actually ridiculous. I'm just trying to save you the trouble. But
You're
I gotta
just
go.
making assertions. You're not showing anything.
Well, I
Okay.
asked you to
Anyway,
justify faith on physicalism, and you said, "Oh, it's just necessary in neuroscience." That's all you
faith
said.
is necessary in order to operate as a
I
human
understand.
organism.
I understand. I'm asking
Okay.
for justification, accountability for
That's
the
it.
claim.
That's it. It's
Okay.
basically it's how organisms work.
Okay. Well, this is. I mean, that's a basic philosophical question. You haven't satisfied it, but
It's not a
that's fine.
philosophical question. It's a truth about
Justification for a
biology.
claim is a basic philosophical question.
It's a biological truth.
Okay, Mike.
You operate on
Guys, take
faith.
care.
Anyway,
Bye.
I got to get out of here, and you got to get out of here. Okay, Dave, you ready? Are you with me?
I'm ready. I'm ready.
God, he's a piece of work. He doesn't want to
gotta-
answer any questions at all. He just wants to repeat the Dyer Jimbob precept bullshit.
Well, all I heard is the same thing. It's you were both agreeing that we rely on faith, and
Yeah.
there you go. So,
But he
once
wants me to
again,
justify it. He wants me to justify it by
adding
saying that
God to
did
it. Adding
Yeah,
God to
add
it
God
doesn't
to it.
doesn't do anything for the argument. I fail to see
No.
it, and
Yeah.
you can call me a dum-dum, but you're failing to make me understand it. So
Yeah, and then
you
he keeps asserting over and over again that I haven't justified, and I have. Okay, let's get out of here.
I think Leo ultimately had the best argument when he said that if your God hasn't convinced me, isn't it the failure of your God or
Yeah.
those that are out supposedly trying to tell us about it? If you haven't convinced us, it's your fault, right?
Yeah.
You were convinced, so why aren't I convinced? I have to ask the question, and I walk around without bumping into walls and stuff. So I think my brain works, satisfactory. So the explanations are either poor or they're incomprehensible, and that doesn't do me any good in the end.
Yeah, you can't even get to the point with them where they will admit that faith is just something that humans talk about. I mean, like, I don't think raccoons talk about faith. Even though on my version of faith, which is a biological rendition of faith, basically, raccoons do operate on faith too. Anything with a complicated neural system or neural system has to operate on faith. According to my definition, but it's pretty much a word, and he and I have a different meaning for that word, yet we're pointing at something similar. There is an emotional feel to faith, right? When you're doing something, when you like, if you ever take martial arts.
Nope.
Okay, there's this whole thing about basically breaking the board before you break the board. And there's this whole thing about moving without thinking about it, right? You develop these movements, and all of that is basically biological faith, burning in muscle patterns and whatever. And that's where,
right.
But when you're doing it right, when you're doing a karate form right, or taekwondo form right, you have this feeling, and that feeling is the only similarity to what he and I are talking about. This emotional feeling that humans can all have and can all talk about. And that is the only common ground. The rest of it was a bunch of bullshit. He thinks faith is some immaterial thing, is what he said, right? And I'm saying, no, it's just the brain doing what the brain does.
Well, and the brain-mind argument, too. The mind has to be special outside. And then you've got a soul. And not only do you have a soul, but you have the Holy Spirit is in you or not in you. And you've got all these things added on, and none of these could be demonstrated. The brain can be demonstrated. All these other add-ons, and you have multiple ones depending on your religion, are all your belief as far as your faith goes. The belief in, like what you were saying, is the belief that you could trace these things back neurologically, and they are biological, and never does it find the soul or the mind outside of the brain, or a spirit, or any of the other mystical things that are attributed to a human being that are all religious based. None of them are demonstrable.
Yeah, and then he asked for me to ground something, and then when I start giving him like the science that grounds it, he said, "Oh no, that's not grounding it." So he just denies he wants to shut me up as soon as I try to ground it, right? Try to explain what it is, and he'll keep moving the mark, because for him the only way to ground it is God, his belief.
That's full circle to the guy you were covering. Yeah, it's that he just admits it. Yeah,
that's an imbecile. Okay, I'm sorry,
they're
but
just
anybody
saying,
that is that blank.
Yeah, I'm presupposing God, therefore my argument is good. And
right.
It's like, well, no, that's fallacious.
Yeah, I can't find anything to sink my teeth in metaphysics and in philosophy in these tag arguments. And there's nothing there. It's fucking fluff all the way down.
And I'm, like I said, I've said before, and I'll repeat it again. I'm to the point where I'll grant your God, but your God doesn't materialize in reality. There is no suspension of the laws of physics or any of these things going on. Only in stories do they go on. And the meme goes around that the claims of miracles have proportionally gone down with modern recording equipment, right? So there were a lot of miracles before there was photography or audio recording or anything else. And the better it's gotten, the less miracles there are. So I think the numbers will speak for themselves on miracles.
So is JG Second Earth Age Promotions? Is that what he is? Is that JG?
I don't know. You talk to JG a lot. I don't.
Yeah, I think because they're saying go away, and they say I thought you had to go. But anyway, you're admitting the physical world view is wrong when you bring faith in. No, faith is something humans do. The physicalist worldview has human organisms in it. End of story. You've just been refuted, you imbecile. Okay, I gotta go. I'm getting angry.
Don't get angry.
No, I'm not angry. I'm tired and kind of done with this. So, okay. Thank you guys out there.
I think we'll have some silly apologists tomorrow, so it'll be fun.
Oh yeah, tomorrow's Saturday. Ooh.
Yep, I've got.
What are we doing tomorrow?
Well, I would say I think I've got one in the queue here. I was just listening to it before everybody got busy streaming here today. So
do share a link.
I'm gonna finish watching it. So far, it's pretty bad, and so that might be the one. It's plenty long, so I don't think I'll need another one.
might dual stream tomorrow, but you know, I like sometimes I
You
leave
should.
early, and I'll just leave my stream running.
You've been
And that way-
you've been hanging in almost till the end every week for like the last month or so.
Almost
So
made it. Almost made it. Yeah.
just take the views, man. Take the views.
Okay, guys, we're out of here. Thank you, everyone out there in chat, even you imbeciles who believe in tag argument. And goodbye, cruel world. We're